Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another segment of Straight Talk with Grover Thornton. The show is designed to educate, inspire, and to inform you how governments, national, state, and local, impact our lives. I have a nice show tonight. I regret I was not here last Saturday night. Normally, I'm always on the second Saturday, but I was in Atlanta last week this time for the memorial of my late brother. My baby brother passed, and I'm very sad, but he suffered. Now he's at peace in rest with Jesus. So I'm glad to be here tonight. I'll be back on my schedule on the second Saturday next month. I'm trying to say this to you that I'm sort of reversing my structure a little bit tonight because of we have so many important things going on in this nation as of now, and our nation is in peril.
Yes, it is.
We have some difficult times because our democracy is hanging on a string. And I cannot understand how the government allowed this man, Mr. Trump, and all his allies to destroy this nation. Thank God for the people that stood strong on January the 6th. I want to talk tonight about voting. Very essential, which is the fundamental backbone of any democracy, is when the people have the right to participate. And even Thomas Jefferson, Declaration of Independence, it talks about when government does not do what's supposed to, it's supposed to do, and the people have a right to make that change. But we had a man in this nation who's trying to suppress the government, trying to overturn the government. He wants to be a dictator, wants to stay in power. But we do have a lot of people that are very strong. So that's why I'm talking tonight a few minutes about voting, how essential it is, how important it is in the history of our voting. Now, let's take the first congressional district. First thing I like to say, I want to give honor to my minister, Reverend Dr. Tillman, First Adam Baptist Church, which I grew up in, with the leadership that he and some ministers took to talking about voting. I don't take the morning news, but some of my friends called me and told me about my pastor, so I did call him and praise him about that because I was so glad to know that the minister took that leadership. I read two books from Dr. King. He must have written several, I don't know, but I'm talking about the two I read. The first book that he wrote was Why We Cannot Wait. Why We Can't Wait. Because a lot of people want it, or take your time to graduate, you'll get this. But Frederick Douglass says, you cannot get power from people. They're not going to give up power. It has to be demanded. It never has gotten that way, and it never will. So I wanted to say to those that are listening how important it is about voting. And we must get out and vote. When I talk about the first congressional district, we have a gentleman that's running. Now, I never met Mr. Carter, and Jack Kingston, his predecessor, was a very good friend of mine. And the first part of the Savannah was in the first congressional district that Jack was in charge of. But they moved him when they restructured the district. So therefore, we got a new man. Carter became the person that took over after Jack Kingston left to another district. So we have Mr. Wayne Herron. I never met the gentleman, but I spoke with him on the phone. And I know his campaign manager, one of the campaign managers very personally, Mr. Tom Kohler. My pastor knows him, and we talked about him. And when he ran in the first election, the primary, my friend was Joyce Griggs, a personal friend of mine. I stick with my friends. Like Regina Thomas, she was a personal friend of mine. And when she and Mayor Jackson ran, I was with Regina, but when she lost, I turned right around and support Ms. Jackson, who I grew up with in the NAACP and the Political Advisory Council. And I was proud to see her move up into the position of a mayor. But now, Mr. Herron, I read about this gentleman, and I'm extremely impressed with you, Mr. Herron. I'm saying that very publicly. And the thing that he has done, working with civil rights, so he helped get money to fund the Boys Club. He has been an advocate for justice, and that's what we need. We know that the Republicans do not care anything about black people in general. This Republican Party. Now, when you go back into history, when you think of Mr. Durskin, you think of the first black a senator from Massachusetts. Incidentally, Mr. Brooks was one of my fraternity brothers, and I went to the convention several years ago, and he was one of the principal speakers. Now, he's deceased now, but Ed Brooks, Senator Ed Brooks, Massachusetts. So we've had good Republicans, like the late Mr. Jarvis from New York, Dickerson from Illinois. Has a lot to do with the Civil Rights Bill. So you can't just say, put down the Republicans. It's this extreme Republican now. Now, you take that lady, Miss Cheney, I have the greatest honor. I'm going to write her a letter because she turned on the party because they turned on the Constitution. So we got to get Mr. Herron in this position because Mr. Carter has never, in my judgment, attended anything that black people sponsored. Now, I'll give Jack Kingston one thing. Jack Kingston was always there. My wife, we went to the Alphas Ball, and when I walked into the Alphas Ball in the hotel, there was Jack and his lovely wife at that time. And I was glad to see him. He was all dressed up nice in his farmers and everything, and his wife and him. So my point is this, that Mr. Carter now represent that area, and he's a Republican. He's probably that extreme parts of the Republican Party, and we need to get Mr. Herron. Now, you got to get out and vote, ladies and gentlemen. If you ever chance to vote, it's now. Now, look at what they did for the women's right for the freedom of choice. I remember coming from church one Sunday, and all down the Abercrombie Extension, ladies and gentlemen, you don't live in Savannah, is one of the main thoroughfares in Savannah. And I left church that Sunday, and these people were all lined up, holding their signs about don't get abortions, don't do this, get counseling, adoption. So this white lady was standing up. I said, ma'am, could I speak to you a minute? Would you come to my car? I'm going to speak to you. Very graciously. She came in, and I said, how you doing, ma'am? Good evening to you. And she said, how are you? I said, well, I just left church. I'm feeling pretty good. How are you? And I said, I got two things I'd like to say to you, ma'am, if I might. So she said, yes, sir, what is it? I said, I see all the ladies holding up all these signs about get counseling, adoption, and all that. I said, but two things I want to say to you. Number one, I said, Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall made this statement on the court he dealing with abortion. And he said, well, when these parents bring these children into the world, the full term, and they apply for public assistance, y'all raise all kind of saying. Babies can't work. And then you want to criticize them, ostracize them, as if they're not human beings. I said, now you see that sign over there, ma'am? Say adoption? I said, I looked right in her face, and I said, would you adopt a black baby? Would you adopt a black baby? That woman walked off. So you see what I'm saying? Shooting their mouths off, but came back up what they really believe. But I'm going to say about Mr. Herron, the things I read about him was excellent. And one thing he said I really liked, he worked himself and dedicated himself to work with these schools, when these young men leave school, get into trouble, and from the pipeline, from school to the pipeline, right into the criminal justice system. And we need to work on that. So I'm pleased. And I'm telling you, I mentioned about the first book. The second book that Dr. King wrote that I read, Strive Towards Freedom. And in that book, that's what I mentioned about my pastor. And he said this about the ministers, that the ministers need to come on out of the sanctuaries, get involved in the community, and help benefit things that will benefit people. And he said, it's wonderful, glad for anybody to read about the wonderful things in heaven. And if you read Revelation, the 21st chapter, almost to the end of the first chapter, it would describe to you, those who don't know, never read God's word, you can find it. It tells you on some of the things about heaven. The walls with all types of gems that some of them I couldn't even pronounce, sapphires and etc. And he said this, it's wonderful to preach about all the wonderful things of heaven while man is on this earth living in poverty in a health condition. So I just want to say this to all my pastors and to all the ministers. I'm pleased and happy that they did this. And like I'm asking you again to get out and vote. Now, I've already voted. I had to get a absentee ballot because of my lung problem. I can't stand long. So my ballot has already been marked. I've already voted for Mr. Herron and the Democrats, Ms. Stacey Abrams. I've already done that. And I'll put my ballot in the mail in the morning. So I'm telling you, get out and vote. In Georgia, they've done everything to restrict you from voting. You see, I can't stand long. They wouldn't let me stand in line and sit in no chair, and I need some water. They want to put me out of the line or put me in jail or put the woman or man in jail who brings me some water. So we got to vote, ladies and gentlemen. That's where we make the changes, when you vote. And I'm willing to bet anybody, if we get the Democrats in there, then this problem, they will get a constitutional amendment, not a constitutional amendment, but a federal law that will make abortion the law of the land, like the Roe versus Wade, the law of the land. I think that's a woman's choice. That's between she and God, not you. Not you, me, or anybody else. It's her decision. So I want you to get out and support Mr. Wayne. Let's put this man in, and let's move Carter out of that seat, the first congressional district. And so I'm telling everybody to vote. I'm telling everybody, let's get out and vote like you never voted before. Now, I want to tell this to these women. Now, you can fool around and sit down. It's too late to register now. But I hope a lot of y'all been talking about registering and talking about voting, and a lot of you all already registered. But you need to vote. And you fool around and you get pregnant. So some of those sorry men not going to help take care of you. They used to one time give the people the money. They go get the votes. Can't do that no more. So the thing for you to do is to vote and give the Democrats the authority and the power to put into effect a constitutional law that will give you the right to make the fundamental choice about your body. So let us get out now and vote for Mr. Wayne Herron. Let's put him in the seat, the first congressional district. Thank you very much for listening. I want everybody to get out, and I want you to vote. Now, next thing I want to speak about tonight is I want to talk about this the late Queen for a moment. She passed after 70 years as head of the British monarchy. When I was a young man, I used to hear people say, the sun never set on the British Empire. I really didn't understand what that meant. But as I got older, getting to read and stuff like that, I can understand. I remember when that lady got married, that I was looking at my mother and myself, we're looking at that television, black and white at that time. And that lady had that tail on that gown about 10 miles. So long. I mean, it was some tail on that gown she had. And look how long she was in power. Now, the English government is sort of different than the way we have in our system. We have a bicameral type government, the House of Representatives and the Senate. They have the Lords and they have the Commons. So every Sunday night for years, I used to always watch the question and answer periods by the Prime Minister. And all the days I used to watch, I only saw about 2 black people in that whole thing over the years, 2. And when I thought about after this lady died and several years ago, there was a movement in England because it went to nothing. They wanted to do away with the monarchy, but a lot of the folk like all that pageantry, that horses dressed up horses, those men with the red shirts and the big black hats, and they love all of that. Riding in the little coaches and stuff like that, pulling by the horses. They get a kick out of that. But listen, the British Empire was nothing but a colonial type situation. It started from the 14th and the 15th century. They took advantage of all these places in Africa, in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, when the queen died, the commentator asked some poet. I didn't get his name, but he had a funny name. I probably could pronounce it anyway unless I put it in syllables. But anyway, the man asked him, said, that's it, Mr. X, I'm calling that. Mr. X, you know, he lost the queen, so what do you think about it? Are you sad? You know what he said? He said, absolutely not. They ripped off and raped us like nothing, all up and down the course. That's why they say this, the sun never set on the British Empire. Now, the monarchy in all those countries, she had no power, but her position was sort of like to accept what the government does and try to encourage the people to do with it and stay in line and do what the laws were passed, more ceremony than anything else. And that when you saw that I don't have the magazine before me, but when I read it in the Time magazine, on that casket was like a crown with a big diamond in there, 105.6 carat. That they took it from somewhere in Afghan or one of the places. That's right. And the question was, is Prince Charles going to give it back to them? The commentator said, I doubt it. They had that since 1847. That's a long time. You see, I just told you, everywhere, they was everywhere. The sun never set on the British Empire. Why do you think history? Why do you think the 13 colonies in America started colonies? They left Britain. Because one of the things they wanted to do, wanted everybody to join the Anglican Church. They didn't want to do that. And they want freedom. And the sad thing, they wanted that. Then they wanted to come here, build the colonies, finally have an American Revolution. The first man died in the Revolution was a black man named Christopher Evans. Christopher Evans. He was a black man. First man died in there. Look up the history when I tell y'all something. You don't have to take my word. Prove me wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to say, you know, I sure missed that. But I try to get my facts before I even talk. He was the first person that was killed in the American Revolution. In every war, black folk just fought in it. Everyone. And look at the way we were treated. Even today, as I talk in the 21st century, what's happening? You don't even want you to vote. You got all kinds of restricted laws. All types of restricted laws. They haven't even passed the right to vote law. They haven't passed the John L. Lewis law. But I'm here to tell you, if we get one or two more senators, you will see a change in this country if you get the Democrats in. When I was in Atlanta, and that white lady came, we were watching the Georgia football game. After we got neat, relaxing, and talking about our brothers, and my sister and my other brother and the rest of the family. And this white lady came on the commercial, putting down Mr. Reverend Senator Warnock. I said, I wish I knew how to call that lady. I'll ask her, can Herschel Walker take her daughter out to dinner tonight? I sure would call her. I wish I had her number or that big talk she's doing. They don't care about that man. They don't care about no black children. All they want is that vote, that power. You heard most of you I know saw the debate last night. Oh, he didn't vote 96% would be behind Biden. And I just kept saying. But look what Biden has done. Not one Republican gave you $1,400. I bet you all those people for Herschel Walker, I bet they didn't turn that $1,400 back that Biden gave them. I bet they didn't do that. Now, I don't know why Mr. Warnock didn't say what he did last night when he kept saying that. I would have said, if I was him, I would say, yes, I supported him. But what he did, you all right here enjoying it in Georgia. You got that $1,400 for the rescue plan. Many of you people in Georgia need insulin. You're paying $300 a month for it. Now it's $35. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. A drug that was developed over 100 years ago, the insulin. Now it's $35 a month instead of $300. But I felt so sorry when that lady was on television one night, but saying how she had a scuffle. $300 a month for her child to get insulin. Now you can buy it for $35 a month. Never in the history. Old Americans are glad to that they're able to buy the insulin as a reasonable price because they never give the Medicare people the authority to negotiate with the drug companies. And then you got the climate problem, the fossil fuel. You know, people only care about money. We all need money. I'm not stupid. But if a man that was on TV one night and said he's worth $240 billion. And all these suffering people, all these poor children all around the world. And you don't realize if God gave him, he would bless him with longer life. I'm not saying he doesn't make some contributions. I'm sure they do it, these rich people. But they can do more. Just like the Biden got all the corporations, 500 of them were not paying no income tax at all. Think about that. But I bet they're paying some now. They have to pay 50%, 15% of their gross income. Even Amazon paid not one dime. They have all of those lawyers, tax lawyers, that get all those deductions, all those write-offs. Like for all the oil companies, give you all an example, the oil companies, they would have something like this. They may not pay no tax on maybe the first 700-800 barrels of oil. And you think how much oil they were producing and putting on the market, and for every 800 barrels, could be less or more. I'm just giving an example of what happens. They pay no tax. That's how a lot of them got filthy rich. They pay no tax. And now the oil companies, Exxon and Mobil, two biggest oil companies in the world, they pay scientists, they pay millions of dollars to scientists to say the climate change is a hoax. And everybody knows, if you read, that the earth is getting hotter and hotter, which is causing all these hurricanes and floods and things of that nature. But I'm here to tell you about the next 30, 40 years, if God let this terrible world last, these gas cars will be out of shape. You're going to have electric cars. I can tell you that right now. Just like you have gas stations everywhere, you have stations where you can charge your car. Maybe by that time they can make a battery that can really endure a long time. We'd have to see. Technology is something. So I wanted to talk about these things, about the Queen, and I want to talk about Mr. Walker now. You saw the debate last night. This man is pitiful. This man is pitiful. Now, I'll be the first to say he was an outstanding football player. And that's all the more he should have cared about his character. I mean, the man is a thug. Let's just call it like I see it. How can he have cheering over here, cheering over there? He said he was against abortion. He got paid the $700. I said last night, that's a lie. I told my friend I was just hoping that lady would somehow come out and say, I came out the shadows and out the closet. I am the lady. I was hoping she would do that before the election and see what he says then. But I was glad after they showed the poll last night that Mr. Walker was over in about 10% or more. I don't see how people can go for a man like that. His own son ridiculed him on national television. Baby's over here, baby's over there, and all those lies he told. And that mess last night, he's trying to pull out some kind of badge, some kind of little mess that somebody would give a child. The FBI got no kind of record of him being in service with the FBI. He said he was car police, which is a lie. The FBI, which was a lie. He graduated from the University of Georgia, which is a lie. He in the first 10% of the class. He didn't graduate at all in the 0%. He didn't graduate at all. And then he comes with that mess about he gives so much money to charity. They cannot find out where he gave a dime. I was looking at television one night. Mr. Trump was standing up there. He turned around and pointed at Mr. Trump. He said, see that man over there? I want to be just like him. So next morning, I watch Scarborough every morning, 6 o'clock. And his wife, Mika, said, did you hear what Trump said last night? And my Scherzer said to Trump, well, I can tell you right now, he already liked Trump. He's a big liar. So the debate last night just showed the people really what he is. And I can't understand. Because when he went to the NFL, he was no outstanding superstar, not with the Dallas Cowboys. He was just an average player. Because when he got there, he found out there were men were bigger than him, faster than him, and better than him. He was not no superstar. He was at Georgia running over those boys. And he been tackled so much that he whacked you in the head. He meant it last night. He took a mental treatment, which I'm glad he did. I'm not putting him down for that. But just don't mean like he was so much of this, that, and the other. He's a disgrace is what he is. What kind of example a man leave his children and talk about criminal? And then he said one time about Reverend he does not believe in redemption. Well, what he's saying, he don't need no redemption because everything he said people said about him was a lie. So what do he need redemption for? The man is sick in the head. That's what it is. He's just like Trump. And how can he let a man like this move around, talk about running for president again? And he's already threatened the nation. I want y'all to know that. You have to read between the lines of what he's saying. He was talking about if he got convicted. Oh, he was saying so many words, it's going to be an uprising that this never has seen in this country before. But see, Biden was not president when he did that. Now let them come up with that foolishness if he get convicted. See what Biden does with the Army and the National Guard. He's the commander-in-chief of the Army. When he come out there and knock some heads with them rifles and bandits, they get some manners and behavior. We can't let one man go threaten the country like this. One no good man, and he had the audacity to call Mrs. Clinton crooked Hillary. Well, he bypassed crooked. I don't know what word to describe him. But thank God that woman in New York got him, the Attorney General, and this woman in Atlanta got him. Or if you could find me 11,000 more votes, or one more than all that. If Obama had done the thing this man did, he'd have been in jail a long time ago. Long time ago. And they're ridiculed on every word that they can think of. This man is a cancer on this nation. He's a cancer on it. And they're doing nothing about it. Now, I think those are the main things I want to talk about, the Biden agenda, which I talked about, the things that he has given the American people. And I can't understand how you give a man a low rating. Because when the man had all of these presidents from Bush on down to Trump, Reagan, all of them, by the same time, period. Obama was right up with him, about 40-something%, and Biden and everything else. The only one that had a higher was about 60-something% at that time, or 50-something%, was George Bush when the people destroyed the two towers in New York. And Bush was doing a lot then. That's when he got a higher rate. All the rest of them had basically the same percentage of approval rating at this time, in this period. So now I want to speak on another issue before I bring my guests in, and that is, I always talk every month basically about a book that I've read, and I talked about things in this book, and then I told you to write down anytime anybody want these books, they could call me, which I would give a number, and I'd be glad to give them the name of the book and the author. Because I think we need to educate our children more and more about what's happening, how we got where we are, in the struggle, in the pain, and the suffering we had to achieve that. And I wish one day I'm going to take on my show to explain to you all one night about the boycott during the 60s. I never dreamed I could be so happy with my black people and one from black people like Mel McLean, fine gentlemen. We had a bunch of fine. In fact, Martin Luther King said at that time in the 60s that Savannah, Georgia was the most integrated city in the South. So we had a bunch of decent white people here, decent white people in the leadership, and they paid a price for it, some of them, because they did what was right. I can never understand it. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to be jumping on the same thing, but I cannot understand this. Black folk have committed themselves. Ryan, think about this. When we was in school, we'd be played into the flag in first grade, second grade, third grade, high school, junior high school. Played in the legion to the flag. And we couldn't even go into a place to eat. Couldn't use a restroom. We had to use the street like dogs. I spit on the ground every time I think about it. And I was in the military. And no, I wasn't in no war, but I'm telling you, it was during the Cold War. And sometime in the morning, 4 and 5 o'clock, they don't never let you know. It's like the Russians already come in, and they tell you when you come there, don't you fool around and get on no train and go to East Germany because you'll be a lost ball in high weeds. And believe me, I never tried to get that way. But black folk has always made the ultimate sacrifice and to be treated the way we've been treated. And people come from other countries and get all kind of benefits. And we live in the same country. And now they're trying to stop us from voting. And I'm going to tell y'all something, and this is true. After the Civil War, I was just starting to read the book on the Reconstruction. But let me tell you what like Trump was trying to do. Trump would have tried to get the election in the House of Representatives. It's only happened one time in the history of this country. And that was in the election of 1876, I believe it was. Yeah, 76. And it was between a man called, he was a Democrat, named Tillman, and the Republican person for presidency was Russell V. Hayes. So what happened? Nobody had the right amount of electoral votes. So the election would have to be in the House of Representatives. You didn't have no 48 seats at that time now. But regardless of how many seats you had, it had to be in the House of Representatives. So what did they do? After the Civil War, black folk had the right to vote. They voted. You had people like governors. You had a lot of intelligent people now. They were slaves. They learned how to read, learn how to write. All masters were not taskmasters. A lot of them had children that helped the slave children, help people, like that Phyllis Wheatley woman. See, children need to read about that woman, wrote poems and all. We got to have our children know about our history. That's what I be trying to tell people. Check me out. The election of 1776. What happened? After the Civil War, they put the troops in the South to protect the black people, the freemen, what they call them. Just was freed. They put the troops. So to get the troops out, they had to start wheeling and dealing. Somebody want the Democrat get the vote. Somebody working to get Russell B. Hayes. Republican Party was already in power. So what they say? Here's the deal they made. Now what you think about this? If you take the troops, this is what they say to Russell B. Hayes and his team. If you take the troops out of the South, we'll give you the necessary votes that you can win the presidency. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what happened. When he became president, Russell B. Hayes, he withdrew the troops out the South. And what started? The Ku Klux Klan, all of that. Disenfranchised black people who had offices and everything. And when you came down even in 1896, I told y'all about that before. We get back into that sometime again, especially during Black history. Tell you what all these things happened in 1896. They went on for 86 years. And Robert Kennedy was fighting for the Civil Rights Bill before the Judiciary Committee. And I'll never forget what he said during that 60s. He said, a prostitute, think about this, ladies and gentlemen, a prostitute, a white prostitute, could go in a hotel with a dog. And you could be a doctor, lawyer, teacher, educated person, professor, anything. But the color of your skin and your race will keep you from doing it. I'm reading a book right now on Ole Miss, where James Meredith got into the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, the flagship school in Mississippi. And I know all of you heard about what happened in Mississippi with the water. Black folk had no water, poisoned water, had to boil water to drink. The black mayor, I was reading that article, the black mayor sent a letter to the governor, asking the governor to please give them $43,000 or whatever it was, so they could do something with upgrade the system, 43 million, whatever it was. The government wouldn't even do it. And black children, if you go all over this country, and you find where black people live, that's where you find your dumps. That's where you find your pollution. Just when we all are not dead, unjust, environmental problems, they didn't care. That's why so many of us have lung problems. So many of us have emphysema. All these type things because We inhale all of this. And that's why they're lying about the fossil fuel. The warming the climate. A lot of us, we go on and on and on and on and on. We don't read, we don't listen. And that's what we need to do. Now, before I'm about to bring my friend in and watch the talk, we got to get him in here. But I want this is the last thing right here. This right here book is called Eyes on the Prize. I purchased this some years ago, and I wish that every parent, black parent, could get this. This is in here. Talking about the American Civil Rights years, 1954 to 1965. And when you look at this, if you don't think we came a long ways, the way we were treated, dogs and all, it made me so sick to think about that in America. And I thought that when one of my good friends, a return brother, said to me, I was telling him about this last night, and I called the PBS, that's a public broadcasting system, Channel 9, and I asked him, could we purchase this? The lady said, let me give you the shop where they sold things. And when I called, she said they didn't have this anymore. And I was surprised. I said, something like this? And I said, I pulled this off my bookcase, Chef. I said, I want the parents who really want their children to know. You know, they got the race theory going on now, critical race theory, because they don't want the white children to know the way black children was treated. These modern young white kids coming up. So in Germany, in 1938, what they did, the head man, the propaganda minister's name was Goebbels. And all these books in the library that Jewish authors and scientists, all they've written, they turn them and put them in piles, ladies and gentlemen, and they set them afire. Burn the books. They want the German church to read about none of this. And I thank God that Albert Einstein got away from that. Otherwise, we would never known that theory that he developed with his theory of relativity about light. He got away from it just in time because so many Jews went to the gas chambers. So we'll talk about that one night about some things. But I wish that every parent could get this Eyes on the Prize. And maybe you can call the library. I'm going to check with the library and see whether or not they have this in the library where they can sit down at the machines and look at it. You may not want to look at all 3 times one time. Take your children to the library if you did. Let them see. One thing about the Jewish children, they know about their history. If anybody needs to know about the history of black people, particularly our black children, learn about their history. They're as good as anybody as God made one race of people. That's all God made, one man and one woman, and told them to multiply in the earth. That's what he did. All right, now, I'm going to check this in the next month. I'm going to see, could we go to the library and go to the library and see, could you see Eyes on the Prize? That's what we needed to do. All right, now let me tell you about my guest I have tonight here for the next 15 minutes or so. His name is Mr. Clinton Young, a young man that I've known. And he was telling how I met him, and he started a vending business. The only black man I know had a vending business called Young American Vendors. And when I was chairman of the Board of Public Health, I opened up the door that he could put his machines, even at that Savannah Tech, in that school, in the buildings that the Department of Health was in charge of. And he was very grateful for that. He had his wife was working with him, fine young lady, and she had a sickness, and he would have said that he believed that there was a physical malpractice, medical malpractice, but he couldn't prove it. And he had a son at this time, and he raised his son by himself. And I think he died about two sons, four children, but I didn't know about the one and your wife. But he talked about he had 4 children. But he was a dynamic person, dynamic leader, and he wanted to come on this show tonight to explain some of the things. I have talked with him for quite a while on some things several months ago. And Chester, that's what I was doing the radio with Chester. Mr. Young, how are you this evening?
Doing great. How you doing, sir?
Well,
Good evening, everyone.
glad to have you on the show. You and I have
Glad
been
to be
talking for
here.
quite a while from some things. But just tell all this right now. I got some questions I'm going to ask you that I wrote down, but tell all this why you want to run for this office.
Well, I'm thinking
First thing, tell them what office it is, sir.
I'm running for Georgia State Senate in District 2, currently held by Lester Jackson. He did a great job. He
Yeah,
made
he
an
did.
attempt for the labor commissioner and wasn't successful. Did a great job. I'm running because I'm uniquely qualified for this position. I walked in a lot of real-time situations that the people today are feeling. My journey as a disabled veteran, as an African-American small business, husband, father, my rise from poverty, growing up in Frazier homes and eat the dirt roads of East Savannah, as a little kid shining shoes, to having an opportunity to drink from the cup of the great American dream. I was the first African-American vending machine operator in the world. My late wife and I started that business. After I got laid off from Gulfstream, I said, I'm not going to ever let anyone dictate me being able to take care of my wife, and at that time, 2 kids.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this. I know you when she was ill. I could attest to that fact because I knew her, and I knew you, and you really took care of her. You really did, no question about it. Like I took care of my late wife. I love my
Yes, sir, you
wife.
did.
Now the next thing I want to you and I talked about it was an old saying one time, and I'm gonna let you tell the people what it is, and speak about you and I discussed about crime in the city. So much of it going on. What has been done, and I don't know whether we have an increase or decrease. We don't. I never see any statistics on it. I do know this about when you come to the poverty, everybody always talking about economic development, economic development, economic development. I hear that word all the time, and I do know this that when I talked to my pastor, uh, Brian Kindness did go build a plant that's going to produce electric cars, and anybody interested in working
Yes.
you contact Savannah Tech and they would give you the details of how you can apply for training. And they don't want you, nobody with no drugs. Our black people, young men, have got to leave these drugs alone.
Yes,
Leave that
sir.
vice alone. Let that white
Yes,
man take them drugs and go someplace else with them. He just pile them up on you all and you around you sell them and doing that. Leave them drugs alone. I had to tell my own 2 boys, leave them drugs alone.
yes, sir.
They were not going to do nothing but destroy you. You can't get no job. You can't do nothing. And he was saying how some plant the man was saying I don't know how a lot of these people. Of course, when they do that plant down there, we want more than just regular laborers. We want people in management positions, people who are qualified to do all these things. And I hope that the leadership, the black leadership of the community, when it do start opening this plant and hiring, then that they keep that in focus. That we want more than just people that working in the labor part. Now you take when Gulfstream came here, when I was at Savannah Tech, we trained people to put the airplanes together, what they call rivet.
You did. Yes, you did.
I have no screws with no screwdriver and the type of machine with the rivet. That's what hold the airplanes together. So you were talking about the crime,
Yes,
and you
sir.
and I were talking about it, and you said something that happened a long time ago, and I never heard it again. So you tell the community what that was. You and I talked about what it was. They always say.
Well, I was first talking about the poverty ratio. We have 34% poverty.
Yeah, yeah,
And that
yeah.
poverty, that 34% poverty, is the pure mother's milk for 22.2% violent crime. And today, we're facing an upcoming food shortage. And you spoke earlier about the tension in the world today.
Oh yeah.
We're going to have an escalating gas price. If you noticed last week, early top of this week, one of our key allies for oil producers, OPEC, told President Biden we're not going to produce all. We're not going to
They cut back.
increase. Well,
Yeah,
he
they
said
cut
not
back.
going to increase. He said, in fact, what we're going to do, we're going to cut down 2 million barrels per day.
A day.
Okay, that's a significant. Let me finish. That's a significant amount. Okay, and I say that because it's an old saying: necessity is the mother of invention. Poverty and crime is the mother of invention too.
Okay,
we
talk
fix to
about.
see something. Now, let me say this. And
All right, now because the time is going, I want you to tell the people about some of the things that we talked about
okay,
the time.
what
Remember
I'm
that?
saying about the crime. My solution to crime is what I've been preaching for the last 15 years. We must save our children.
Yeah.
The last 3 murders of under 18 came right out of East Savannah where I live. Okay? Well, I think I'm going to say one with a 2-year-old baby was an accident. But a 16-year-old after 10 p.m. Okay? And the other 2 in the last, say, 8 to 9 months over at the Savannah Gardens. A 10 p.m. curfew. A 10 p.m. curfew for under 18. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? Has been a staple growing up.
I used to hear that all the time when I grew up.
Every television affiliate, ABC,
right.
NBC, CBS, at 10 p.m. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? We need to get back to that.
Yes.
We also need to have prime time foot patrol in these high crime districts. Now, you live in a good area out there, Mr. Thornton. Y'all live in a great area. But the crime will move south too. You know what happens in Waters Avenue, my neighborhood, East Savannah, Fraser Home, where I grew up at, Caton Home, where Raphael grew up at, okay? West Savannah, Hitch Village. My opponent, been in office 2 years. 2 years.
Yeah,
I haven't heard him say anything about these shootings.
sure.
Had a massacre in Hitch Village, 15-year-old baby, 15-year-old girl, stabbed multiple times. And when they got through stabbing her, shot her 3 times in the face.
Terrible.
He sit in the same House of Representatives with her uncle. I didn't hear a mumbling word. In office last June the 9th, made international news in Hitch Village. 9 shot, 3 women, 2 babies, 3 dead. Mentioned on BBC behind New York and Chicago and Savannah as the weekend of mass shootings. Haven't heard anything, okay? But that's that. What we need, they said to fund the police, we need to fund our police. We need to do community policing, okay? Where a police officer that serve in the area where he lived, like that. You know, everybody said, now you got some bad apples, but let's have community policing. You wanted to interject? Go ahead. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, the one I want to ask you, another thing you and I spoke about, and I told you that I agreed with you. Just tell the community your position on this gambling. You remember when you went about the you and I talked about what impact that would have on this community?
Well, they are pushing legalized gambling.
Terrible.
And they say it's to help the children. I don't believe bringing gangsterism into our community in the form of any type of legalized gambling. The only thing it'll do for a child is have him barefoot, hungry, and destitute if his daddy is out there gambling up all the rent money and food money. We don't need to bring that vice here. And I believe the church need to stand up. The pastors with some backbone need to stand up and preach strong out of the pulpit with bringing in vices like that. A vice like that, bring in 3 mices. No mices are growing to rats. That's prostitution, drugs, and the strong arm robbery. You can bet that follows legalized gambling. Drugs, prostitution, and robbery. Strong arm robbery. Get that out of our neighborhood. People in and we got a recession going on right now, and it's going to get worse as this. You just seen the Feds go back to back to back with 0.75% interest rate on interest, and they're going to go a whole point. I bet the next one. That's going to create recession across the board as the gas go up, the food shortage, everything come out on the truck or rail, and they run by gas.
Okay.
Now, yes, we got a electrical car plant coming here. Those jobs, when they debut in 2025, will be $65,000 to $70,000 per year, entry-level jobs. You mentioned something, and that's paramount. America must stay a drug-free workplace. You are not going to have an OEM, original equipment manufacturer, hiring anybody on drugs.
All right, let me ask you this, but time is running out. I want people to understand this. One of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to talk to like Mrs. Hall. She's on the Board of Education, and several people. I know all of them basically on there. And that is, I think we need to introduce a very entry-level course in the public schools, in the high school, basically, on economics. And the reason why I say this, people do not understand anything about economics. Give you an example. One of my white neighbors one day, I was using my phone because my son had the key, couldn't get in the house, and I had to use my phone to call my son Kenny to come and let me in the house. And so I went to their house, and his wife came up when I was going out the door. My son was on the way. And I said, "Oh, you got a bunch of groceries." I said, "This sure is high." We blame Biden for that. It's sad. Now, you just said what I was going to say about OPEC, which people understand. That's the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. They control oil. They're going to cut back the 2 million barrels a day. You think about that, Russia and them. And Russia got to the point that they would only sell you oil if you got to buy it with rubles. That's Russian currency. So if Russia does not buy your goods, how you going to get that currency? That's the point.
Let me say this. Let me interject this.
Wait a minute. People don't understand how the economy works. You always have what they call a vicious cycle. A vicious cycle. It'll be prosperity is far. You think 2 or 3 years, then you have a couple of recession, it goes around. And therefore, like President Kennedy said one time, that's what the government then should put money into stimulate the economy because of recession. Now, the Republicans want to talk about 5 years or more. They want to get rid of Social Security. They want to get rid of medical care. Well, how do you expect people to live? And people need to understand Biden does not own all. Biden, that's going to affect that. When they do that, that's going to affect everything that you buy. Why you gonna bring the president? He doesn't control all the supply chain. You'd be surprised. He's just stopped, for instance, Biden stopped the railroad strike about 2 to 3 weeks ago. Do you know the railroad deliver about 30% of the goods in this country by rail?
The deal out.
And if they went out, you probably couldn't buy nothing. I went into Walmart about 2 weeks ago. I went to Walmart
that deal out.
I went to Walmart about 2 weeks ago to get me some undershirts. All these racks with undershirts, not a thing in them. Now, see, they probably come from Japan or come from Taiwan. So my point is this: if that's the supply chain, if you can't get the vehicles or the mechanism to bring the stuff here, you won't be able to purchase it. You can't blame Mr. Biden if they run up on the gas. Biden get caught a gas eye because they don't understand nothing about economics.
Well, let me say this in. You're looking at an intentional destruction of the U.S. petrodollar established under the Nixon administration in 1973. Now, the young man, Ali Habib, over there, right now, the prince, his father's still alive, but his dad gave him all the proxy. He's leaning toward Putin, President Xi, and the Ayatollah. Okay, they want to destroy the U.S. petrodollar and make the Chinese petrodollar, the international standard. That's why he and the other OPEC, that nine group that make up the conglomeration of OPEC, they want to kill the U.S. petrodollar, and look like it's going to happen, especially in a vulnerable state where you just seen we went and dipped into our supply, our reserve. That should only be used during wartime.
Oh yeah,
You know,
oh yeah.
okay. Well, let me finish. I won't take up much time.
Yeah, because we got too many about ready to go off.
Okay. What the people are hollering about is we have the reserve under our earth, under the ground here in the U.S. to take us for 300 years and supply every NATO ally. Okay? When we decide not to drill anymore, these folks, as you say, with this vicious cycle, went for the jugular vein. Let's kill the U.S. petrodollar and make the Chinese petrodollar the international standard of purchase. So, a lot of people say we better start drilling.
And they won't drill. I don't know why they won't drill.
Huh?
They stopped drilling. Exxon and Mobil, they stopped drilling.
We need to start back. That's why I'm proposing that we have mass transportation. We need a high rail system.
Sure.
Statewide high rail system. We got the logistics to get it rolling within 3 years. We need that.
Well, they've been talking about
They've
been talking about putting the NASA Hank back on the trail
For the
every
longest.
year. The same thing. Savannah is just behind in everything. I'm gonna tell you that a fact.
Well, we need
They
to
had
do
no
it.
business. They had no business banning the NASA Hank.
They shouldn't have never did that. Like I say, right now, with the destruction of the U.S. petrodollar, okay, we need to start drilling. Inauguration day, gas was $53.46 a barrel. It reached the threshold of $120 one time.
Over $100 a barrel.
120 at one time.
Over, I know.
But to say, with that being said, we need to hurry and start making provision for mass transportation. It will increase competitive competition in the workforce. It'll bring people in, and it also have our people to get out to this this new site in West Chatham. I was with the lady from CETA that handles that plant, right? That's a generational contract this region just got. We miss Daimler Chrysler, we miss BMW and Volvo. But this right here with Hyundai, bringing their whole division, Kia, Hyundai, and the Genesis series to Savannah to make an electric.
We got to get these men. All right, sir, we're about to come into the end of this program tonight, but just let me say, you mentioned all these plants that we lost, and I thought we would have gotten one of them, but I don't know what happened. But I can tell you
We got this one.
Yeah,
it took Gulfstream decades, my former employee Gulfstream, decades to reach the 10,000 employee threshold. This company coming overnight with a windfall, okay?
But that's good. But the only thing I want to say before I close it here is that these young men got to prepare themselves. Get away from them drugs.
That, as well as what you just mentioned. And I was in first class, one of the first two classes with the Georgia Quick Start with Savannah Tech and Gulfstream Aerospace.
Yeah.
Detailed fabrication and structure, fasteners, derivatives.
Okay.
Stuff like that. We need to do this here and put it back into the high schools. Everybody's not going to a 4-year college.
You're right.
But you can get into technical school and prepare yourself and have a ready workforce from when these major industries come here. We can say,
okay, sir,
preparing people. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. I want to say this in about closing here in about a minute. I want to say that I like your thinking, and I think the people are like your thinking, and I know for a fact that you're for business, and you're very knowledgeable. I'm glad to hear you talk that way, be knowledgeable on issues. But there are some things that I think we can improve ourselves. Our people will be more educated. Like I said, the elementary course on economics. I remember Jimmy Carter one time when he was president. He said, well, the average American does not know anything about the balance of payment. And that's a long time now. Look how long that's been since he said that.
That's
So that he said the balance of payment. What that means? And when I went to college and I took that course in economics, I found out what it means. And the balance of payment means only one thing: that you right here in America. That's why we got a bad balance of payment. We import more than we export. So what does that mean? That the other people got more of your money than you got of theirs. Well, when they go to the international monetary exchange, then they get all the dollars, and you got little the Russian money or the Chinese money to don't get your money back. That's what you call the balance of payments are bad in this country. Well, we're coming to the closing on this show tonight, and it's been very productive, and I hope you have much success, Mr. Young. And I hope y'all remember what I told y'all about Mr. Herring. We need to get that man in this office, to get Bodycart out of that office. And that's another Republican that does not care for black people. The whole parties are different. It's an extreme party now. And all of them bucket down to one man called Donald Trump. What does that man have on these people? I don't know. But thank God for a woman like Liz Cheney. She lost her seat. But that lady will go down in history. The books are written. How she stood against her own party. And how she stood up. And like Martin Luther King said, this is the last thing I'm going to read something about him the other night. And Martin Luther King said, if I live to be 90 years old, this was not the night when he made that thing and he died the next day. It did say where he said it was at a church. I could see the pictures of the church. He said, if I live to be 90 years, I'm 38 years old now. And if I live to be 90 years old, he said, and if you are 38 years old and some challenge came to you to take a stand, he told a bunch of young people, and said, take a stand on the issue, a particular cause, and you are hoping to be 90 years old, and you're 38 years old, and you refuse to participate, you refuse to take a stand. He said, you are just as dead as 90. If you live to be 90 and die, you're just as dead at 38 as you would 90. So stand up and take a principle, stand on what you believe, and be thoughtful and and to be committed to making our community a better place. So, Mr. Young, I appreciate you being on the show tonight. And you were very good. And I hope you much success and much luck in what you're doing. Because I know a lot of people heard you. And a lot of people believe in what you said. So God bless you.
God bless
you. Ladies and
you.
gentlemen, I come to the closing of my show tonight. And I hope that I have been able to impart some information that will be helpful. And we got to remember one thing, as I always close with this statement, that let us continue to strive unto justice and equality of opportunity becomes a reality, because this is the birth rate of all unborn children, and particularly black children, who will be the beneficiaries of all of our work, of all of our struggle. So thank you for listening, and God's willing, I'll see you next month. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Good evening.
Like like this. I like that.